As someone who has mentored leaders for a number of years, several people have approached me and said, "Hey, Eli's dad, how would you handle our present situations?" Stay tuned. Hello again, everyone. I'm Eli's dad with Project Eli, where we educate, we lead, we inspire. And today we're going to kind of meander a bit and talk about the present situations that are facing us here in the United States and in the world. And if I were in charge, what would my thinking be? And I'm going to tell you right off the top that it's not going to be in line with what you've heard from other people before. So I'm going to get right to it and give you my 2 cents and take it for what it's worth, and hopefully I'll be planting a seed that we can move forward with. All right, first of all, one of the things that I've noticed, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and one of the things that you notice is you have a couple of these governors, the governor of Florida, the governor of Texas, DeSantis, Abbott. One of the things they're saying to the president is, we need to let the local people decide what policies we're going to pursue. So, I'm saying that I'm local, there's going to be no mask mandates, and that's that. So that's the form of government that should be in charge. Now, when the people that were the framers of the Constitution put it together, the concept is that you should have the right level of government in charge of whatever issue is at hand. As an example, when you go to war, you don't have 50 states, you don't have each individual state with a general, you have one general for the whole war. By the same token, if you have something at a real local level, then you don't have the federal government stepping in, you let the local government handle it. First of all, I find it very hypocritical that these governors are saying, hey, I don't care, no matter what, we're not going to have any mask mandates for kids in school. I thought the concept for them was, hey, let the local people handle it. What could be more local than the school district? Certainly they are more attuned to what's happening in their particular community than somebody sitting in the governor's mansion. I find it hypocritical that on the one hand they're saying, hey, we should let the local people handle it, and then on the other they're saying, I'm not letting the local people handle it, I'm going to handle it. Hello, McFly. All right, that's a point. But let's go to my bigger point here. All right, I'm looking at a couple of things that we're facing here, this pandemic and global warming. Now, first thing I want you to consider, is that the world is a much smaller place now than it was even 400 or 500 years ago because of all the technology that we have. I mean, years ago, if you wanted to go from, let's say, London to the New World, it would take you several months to get on a ship and go and do that. But now, hey, you're there by the end of the day. So, I mean, there are borders and there are borders. Right now, we're one big global community. Now, keeping in mind that you want to have the right level of government that is in tune to the problem, my thinking is, instead of being more local, we should be more global. Now, one of my criticisms of President Trump was that he was something that was a national issue, he was letting off to the states, letting each state decide, and my point was, this virus knows no borders. So the border between Texas and Oklahoma or Massachusetts and New York is meaningless because the virus doesn't recognize borders. We're back in that same particular scenario right now. The virus doesn't recognize borders. So this new variant, this Delta variant, is literally killing us. That's number one. Secondly, what we need to do is we need to have not just the United States with a policy, we need to have a world policy. This is a war on a global scale. It's a global scale war. If you're going to have a global scale war against a virus, then you have to have global scale leadership. So to have the United States have one policy, and India another policy, and China another policy, is the same thing as having 50 generals when you're fighting a war. Does that make sense? The point is, we need to have centralized leadership and one policy worldwide. And when we do that, then we'll have a mission worldwide that we can all address. So this COVID-19 virus is something that is worthy of a global leadership tactic. Another thing that is worthy of this global leadership tactic is global warming. We're seeing it all over the world. It's not just in the United States, with hurricanes, with forest fires, with the hottest temperatures ever recorded on Earth. We're seeing it happen all over. It's not something just happening in one country. It's happening on a global scale. So this is something that we also have to embrace with a global vision, where we have to unite. And the point is, we as people on this planet have more in common than we have not in common. You know, clearly there's, religious differences here, religious differences there, so on and so forth. All right, I recognize that. But these are two things that we can all embrace and say, hey, we are all facing this virus together. There is a common enemy, so we need to have a common solution. Now, have we seen this before? Well, in World War II, you had all of these different countries, on one side, United States, Britain, Australia, all these different, Canada, that all united under one leadership. And that leadership made the decisions, and that's how World War II was won by the Allies. We need to, once again, give up a little bit. Everybody has to eat a little bit of humble pie. We need to put the best person in charge, the best people in charge, and we need to follow their direction. Now, this whole scenario reminds me of a close that we used to use in the wonderful world of sales. And it seems to me like it's happening right here and right now. So I want to give you the close. One of the things that people would say is, when you wanted them to make a decision, is they say, well, it's difficult making a decision on this. And you say, that reminds me of the story of the flood and the man that lived in the neighborhood that was a religious man. And what happened was, the flood was coming, the people in the community knew about the flood, and the police department went around and they said, hey, a flood is coming, you need to get out of your house and go to higher ground. And the man said, oh, don't worry about me, I have faith in the Lord is going to protect me. So some people, most people left, and then there was this guy in his house. All right, well then the water started getting to a higher and higher level, and it was up to, already above his windows, and a guy in a rowboat came by, and he said, hey, come on, get on board. I'll take you out of here so you can get to higher ground and be safe. He says, oh, don't worry about me. The Lord will provide for me, no problem. And the guy in the rowboat went away. And then the water went higher and higher and higher, and finally the water is all the way up to the roof level, and the guy is standing on his roof. And a helicopter comes by and drops down one of those ladders from the helicopter, and they yell down, hey, grab a hold of the ladder! When you grab a hold of the ladder and come up, and we'll take you to higher ground. And the guy says, don't worry about me, I'll be okay, the Lord will provide for me. And then ultimately the helicopter took off, the flood waters continued to rise, and the guy drowned. And so the guy arrives at the pearly gates, and he says to St. Peter, he said, hey, I had my faith in you that you were going to protect me, that you were going to save me. What happened? St. Peter looks at him and he says, hey, I sent 3 separate people to take care of you, but you didn't respond. What more can I do than that? Aren't we looking at the same situation right here, right now? I mean, we had this first outbreak of the virus, and we were really in a world of hurt. And then we got sent the vaccine. The vaccine was to help us. And when that happened and our numbers started to go way, way down, we got comfortable again and didn't do very much. And then what happened is we had the Delta variant break out. And now the people that are unvaccinated are in danger of dying. Now the thing is still spreading, but the point is we need to get this virus down to like no numbers at all, which means we have to get everybody vaccinated so that the thing will disappear without killing people. Because you can still catch it right now, even if you're vaccinated, but you're not going to die from it. All right? It's going to be an illness as opposed to a terminal disease. So that's happening again right now. My point is, how many different warnings do we have to have? We've seen that thing on global warming with all the hurricanes, the last year's hurricane season, with the wildfires that are growing all over the place, not just in the United States, but all over the world. We're seeing temperatures rise. We're seeing the ice caps melt. I mean, we're seeing all these different things. How many different warnings are we going to see before we do something? Our Creator has told us, hey, I'm giving you like a heads up, but if you don't do anything, you're going to be stuck. That's my point. My point is we don't need less government at this point, because this is the size of these issues are like a war. The virus is a war. Global warming is a war. What we need is a unification, a global leadership, and the United Nations would probably be a good place to start. I don't have an idea of how this should go about, but I'm looking at the big picture, and the big picture tells me until we get everybody on the planet cooperating, locking arms, we're not going to get these problems solved. And some people are going to be uncomfortable because they're going to have to do things they don't want to do, but for the greater good, it's going to become necessary to achieve the results that we need to achieve in order for our planet and our people and generations of our children to survive. I've spoken to you from the heart, not from the keister. I welcome opposing viewpoints. I welcome suggestions. I welcome, this is like a think tank. And remember, until next time we get together, don't ration the passion, fashion the passion. I'm Eli's dad.